Alrighty then. All right. There you go. Says I'm live. I'll have to assume I'm live. Says I'm live. Yeah. What I can do actually is find out. Am I live? Go there. Go there. Yep, I'm live. Go there. Okay. I can use that to monitor. Anyway, yeah, so just gonna get my shit together here, guys. Sorry. I literally about 2 minutes before I was supposed to go live. I'm a little early on the draw, but I've got it going, so I figured what the heck. But about 2 minutes before, I was playing around with trying to get my tech stuff working for this. And you know, Macs are great, but sometimes Macs can be a real pain in the ass. You know, because anyway. So anyway, yeah, so I'm here. It is Saturday night. At this point. Sorry, I'm just getting everything lined up here. So that when I do that and that, because I will be doing that, as you can sort of see, so I am live here from YouTube, going not to Facebook because Facebook is still being a dick for another 2, almost 3 weeks, something like that. And I had another month-long, slap on the wrist because I forget why. I remember why. I said something to the effect of the Senator Hawley there, whatever the heck his name is, the Nazi, that someone needed to kneecap the son of a bitch. It's like, mustn't kneecap the Nazis because that's somehow violent. It's like, oh, really? Any more violent than the fact that they just want to kill people? Yeah. Okay, there, farce book. I see you. I see you. So, but anyway, it is now 7:31. It's Saturday night. It's February 6th. Somehow we're already in February in this year. I mean, time is a funny thing when you're either too busy to notice or too lazy to care, I guess. Sorry, itchy ear. Anyway, so I am live here on YouTube, going out there, but I'm also going live via my cell phone on Instagram to the folks that are up there. So I figure, just kind of, I'll be doing a lot of this tonight. So, so at this point, I think I've settled on Saturday night. I think it makes the most sense because Friday night, I'm even though I technically have a half day for the most part, I need the rest of the day. He said, I'm already yawning. Sorry, I just ate supper and it's kind of playing up on my tummy a little bit. So anyway, so I think going forward, I'm going to be doing these Saturday nights at 7:30 for however long, usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending. Again, I don't have any sponsorship yet. I'm hoping to get some. Hopefully, if I can get this out there to some people who want to listen, or I'll take a sponsorship for these guys here, the sparkling ice, caffeinated something or other. It's actually really good. It's basically a seltzer water, but it's caffeinated. And it's got a little bit of it's like five calories, There's there's like no sugar, there's no sodium. It's all pretty you know, I mean, as healthy as you're gonna get. I mean, it's a caffeine drink, but it's not one of the coffee ones, which I still drink as well, but I don't want an endorsement from them. I'm trying to get off of those. But these are good. This will get me through. Anyway. Mhm. So, so what am I talking about tonight? One of the things I think I need to talk about tonight is what did I do? I mean, last week it was a lot of politics. Last week it was also a lot about existentialism. I was on this big rap about um, uh, how the brain space works and how one contextualizes or compartmentalizes um, their experience with the day to day or their experience with the reality, for that matter. All very heady subjects that I don't expect everybody to either understand or care about or whatever. Um, but it's something that I think about often because I try to I try to so I'm looking for okay, I just turned 56 years old and I'm still pretty clueless on a lot of levels. Or because I'm OCD, there are things that whether I know them or not, it's hard for me to undo or it's hard for me to um, control, although I've tried. Have I tried hard enough? Hmm, I'm not going to say I've tried 100% because it's fucking exhausting. But I've tried, and the fact that I'm still here at 56, and the fact that I'm still trying, and I'm still sober. Talked a lot about sobriety last week as well. After all this shit, I am, um, you know, I'd like to think that because I'm trying, I'm at least, you know, worthy, or worthy of some forgiveness or worthy of some, a little bit of leeway. Now, I'm not. It's easy to make mistakes, and sometimes you're making mistakes when you don't even realize you're making them. And so for me, um, one of the things I've noticed in the titling, I again mentioned I was going to talk about mental health this week. It's kind of a rough week. Um, he says as he rubs his eyeballs, which is something you're not supposed to do, but you do it anyway because it feels good. So I don't know if it's a product of aging, but this time of year, the cold and the winter and the stuff, I never used to suffer from that sort of winter kind of blues thing or whatever the technical term of it is, seasonal affective disorder. That's what I'm looking for. I never really paid much attention to it because I didn't really think I either suffered from it but I saw other people suffering from it. Um, and I always felt kind of lucky, but again, one loses one's youth, and one starts to kind of one's bones gets a little too creaky, and one's bones and joints start to say, "Hey, shit, it's fucking cold. I don't like this." But also noticing that one's mental state um, changes as well. Ooh, excuse me. So, not that I'm a big, huge fan of the summer, but I just have noticed that it's harder for me in the winter to pull out of my funk or um, my sensitivity or my what's what I'm looking for. Just the general sort of malaise or the general sort of agitation factor. And as much as I was on last week all about um talking about my little mantra of saying nothing matters in the long run, which again I still subscribe to, though. You know, it's one of those things. It's hard to remember that when you're really literally stuck in the flow of a momentary um, mind glitch of just stuck on a criticism or stuck in a really bad place or mood or circumstance or all of those things all wrapped into one. And that was last week for me. I had a really bad week. Um, you know, I had a bit of all of that all at once, and that's and this for me, it seems to like somehow tend to do the universe tends to do that to me, or I'm doing it somehow. I'm not exactly sure, but I just one day just turns into a real shit show between stuff at work and just feeling really shitty and my cat being sick and thinking my cat was actually you know well, I mean, my cat's old, so it's one of those things you have to start kind of getting into that mindset of a thing that happens when your cat gets old. you know he's fine today, or I've got him, he's on his anti-nausea medication, so he's eating again and not throwing stuff up, and and he's always looking a little bit more, like himself, less like a frail old man, Um, but it's still a day-to-day worry because cats are, anybody who owns cats knows that every day is sort of like, well, okay, we get through this day, we'll get through the next one, see how he goes, and see how far we can take this. But so I basically found myself in that place of my state of mind where I wasn't ready for it, of having to think about, the inevitable, obviously, when your cat's getting old. What that means and how it's going to present itself. And I was there. I was in the same place 2 years ago. It'll be March 1st when my last little one passed away, and it happened very quickly with him too. But it was literally it was like a week where suddenly he seemed to like not be doing well, and sure enough, there was nothing I could really do for him, and it came to the point, it's like, look, I don't, I mean, money wise, I suppose if I had the money, I probably would have thrown money at it, but I don't. But I also didn't want him to suffer, and he made it pretty clear, I think, to me that it's like, look, this is where I'm at. You know, so I had to just, I couldn't, watch him do that. So anyway, long story short, 2 years later, um, I find myself in the same situation. So again, this is nothing new. This is not a unique thing to anybody. This is something that happens every moment of every day with most humans who have and or like pets of dogs or cats or whomever. Goldfish, Um so however, it's nonetheless real and it's nonetheless painful. And you run into people every once in a while who kind of don't understand and look at you funny because you're grieving, or you're even setting yourself up to handle the grieving that's going to be coming, and how difficult that is. And they don't understand necessarily. Um, you know, so and all that being said, that's for me on a good day, when all is chipper and right, my emotional capacity is right under the surface for me. And it always has been. And it's something, it took me years and years to figure that out. That I am a I'm a self-proclaimed drama queen, whatever the hell that means. I think though there is a certain amount of that's again, as the older I get and the more that I look at the world and how I'm reacting to the world, that some of my reactions are actually pretty right on. They're actually appropriate. My therapist has even said so. I mean, the problem is that one still has to be professional at the job, and one has to, be a member of society and be not an asshole and all that kind of stuff. Um, I'm I'm an asshole. What happens with me when I'm an asshole is that I forget those things, and people get in the way, or get in the way of the wake of my reactions to things, and my reactions tend to be big, unfortunately, and they always have been. Again, anybody who knows me and anybody who has tolerated me over the past 40 years know my propensity for explosion, for emotionality, agitation, whatever you want to call it. Kind of is what it is. I'm again. I don't. There's only so much of it I can explain away, and I certainly don't excuse it because I'm trying to, um, pull a rein on it. I'm trying to tame it. And I've done somewhat of a good job of it over the years, and with the, don't drink anymore. Though I sometimes wonder, um, do I have what's the word I'm looking for? Is it there are times when I think about my sobriety and I think, did I, whether I did the right thing or not. It's like I'm still 20 years on, and my state of mind is just as jumbled as it ever was in a lot of ways, and um, my health is still bad. I don't know if how much purchase of that being sober helped at all. I mean, maybe it did, especially now with COVID times. I mean, maybe that's my money in the bank, or when I'm just not really seeing it as that. Because if I had been drinking and but had potentially more, my health was potentially more worse off than COVID got. Knock wood, might have been might and or be a potential problem. Anyway, blah blah blah. Ranting. So, oh, excuse me. Anyway, so bad week. Yeah, a lot of things happened all at once. Hard to sometimes handle all of that. When you start to having to juggle knives, watermelons, and boulders, and kind of doesn't work. And the irony of it is that for the most part, I have been doing a great job of all of that, whether that's at work or here at home. For the most part, I've been doing the best that I can. You know, it hasn't been a complete disaster yet, but again, it's amazing how one's psyche and tipping points can be very easily upset by, whatever it might be, a judgment, a criticism, an external stimuli, circumstance, and then all of that stuff rolled into one, and it becomes volatile. It becomes toxic in your head. Now, for me, I unfortunately tend to use, you know, these platforms as, my outlet for some of that shit. Because listen, I don't have a family here other than the cat. I have burdened my friends over the last 40 years with my states of mind, and somehow they still, I mean, I think they tolerate me at this point. I think, and if after this length of period of time, the ones that tolerate me and still call me a friend, well, it makes me a lucky motherfucker, because there are times I really don't think I deserve it, or there are times I really think that, well, I've tried and tested these friendships because of the way that I am and the way that I've tried to change myself. Sometime, on some levels I've been successful, but on a lot of levels this is just me. And that's another sort of harsh thing that I'm sort of starting to understand is like, I'm not going to be the happy-go-lucky dumbass kid when I every once in a while I can wave across the river to that kid and kind of get a sense of what that kid's doing. But I don't, I'm never going to be able to be that kid again. I've seen too much. I have adulted too much. Um, so I just, you know, all I can really do is offer apologies for when I've lost my shit and when people have been nice enough to, you know, hand me the shovel. It's like, look, dude, I'm not shoveling your shit for you, but I get it. So here's your shovel. Shovel the shit out of the way and let's move forward. Okay, well, let's try to do that. And I try to do that. You know, just finding a lot of things going on at once, and again, it's hard to juggle. So, long story short, this is about talking about mental health at this point. Um, Kind of a lead up from last week's talks about sobriety and existentialism. Um, So the nitty gritty or the reality of mental health obviously is therapy or medication are the two sort of go tos that most people think about when they talk about mental health, with good reason, obviously. Um, but I think not the problem, but I think the thing that's missing in all of that is that there are a lot of other elements of mental health that need to be addressed. That I feel like I see that they just don't get addressed, especially like on a daily basis. Um, and it does follow through into the politics and the and how our social infrastructure in this country is set up to make people ill. And now I'm not just talking about me. I'm not just talking about you know the crack addict or whomever or the drunk or the person who has a serious chemical imbalance that they've maybe inherited from their mother or whatever the fuck it might be. But we're looking at all these QAnon people. We're looking at all the Proud Boys. We're looking at all the evangelicals. We're looking at people who believe religion to the point of um, sheer sickness. I mean, we're seeing it on mainstream media. We're seeing it in our everyday life. We're seeing it at work. We're seeing it. Um, we're seeing it in the halls of our government. I mean, the mental illness in this country is just um I mean, I wanted to go to the word stunning, but that would impart a certain amount of awe or um beauty about it. And there's nothing beautiful about it, you know? Um and the fact that the fact or it seems the fact that like so many people are willing to just normalize those levels of mental illness like it's all just okay, you know? And all that does is debase and minimize the people who are really trying to pull themselves out of mental illness or really seriously working on it, you know. Listen, I could live in an unrealistic world till the cows come home. I have in the past, in the recent past. um, but uh, one has to make a decision about what one wants to do. Does one want to stay in this reality or not? I've chosen to stay. So there are certain rules to this reality, apparently, that preclude the kinds of mental illness that it might be afforded to me. Now, some people on this planet or in this country have just lost that plot completely. Uh, and the thing of it is, it's not just stupid people, man. I'm seeing highly intelligent people just giving in to whatever the mental illness du jour is. And right now, it's this political horror show. The unempathetic as strong patriot, something like that. I don't know. I don't get it. Yeah, I mean, I don't get it for sure. And I don't condone it, and I don't have a lot of patience for it. You know, um, because these people basically really all they want is to, excuse me, they just really want to crush anything that isn't white is what it seems like. They want to crush anything that isn't white and isn't right because somehow we're the ones that are the problem, right? I think deep down they know they're the problem, but and the fact they also know deep down, they're not going to be able to succeed in this in the long run. So it puts them on the defensive in a fearful position that, well, it's like, yeah, well, then, start thinking for a second and you'll pull yourself out of it and, you won't have to be fearful, you know, but that's a whole other story. So getting back to mental illness. So the thing that I see about mental illness that I feel like people are missing is that, and it's hard to put into words, but people talk about being an adult, people talk about being a professional, people talk about having being graceful on a day-to-day basis, or being, grateful. You know. And to me, I guess the whole idea about gratefulness, I don't know. I guess it rubs me the wrong way a little bit, because I don't know. Maybe it just reminds me of something a little too religious for my tastes. It's like you're thanking something for what little scraps you have. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. To me, that seems to be more like praying to that same angry, vengeful God that wants you to lick his feet. That's what it feels like to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Um, Being graceful is one thing, and it's if some people can do it well. I don't. I don't do it well. I'm messy. I'm a messy. I'm a messy person when it comes to my emotions, unfortunately. And again, I always have been, but I also didn't have very good role models in that regard from my family. Again, not trying to make excuses. I'm just stating facts here. I, have had to learn on my own for the most part how to get this far. And, you know, what I've learned from people that I've met along the way, or things that I've read, you know. But I'm late to the party. I feel like I've always been late to the party on a lot of levels, especially emotionally. I'm 56 years old, but man, and maybe I'm not so unique, but I still, deep down, man, I feel like I'm just a fucking 8-year-old, emotionally speaking. I mean, and they do say that, you hit you hit 8 or 9 years old. That's your sort of that's your state of mind for the rest of your life, for the most part. That's a scary fucking thought. That, like, by the time you're eight, or in your, 8 to 10 years old, that your mindset is kind of set. It's like it's set itself on a path. That scares me. Just the thought of that, or the idea of that. That, like, I mean, to me, that feels like there's no hope to change anything. But I mean, that being said, I've also proven that wrong as well. You can change things, and you can try to order things, but can you control things? Well, control is a very loaded word. I don't have control over anything in my life. I feel like right now I have control over this thing that I'm doing live, talking to two people. And I don't know who these two people are, because they haven't said anything. I think one of them is probably me, because I'm doing one. Signed in as one person, but there may be another person here. I don't know. Or that's just the FBI, keeping tracks on me. So if it is the FBI or CIA, just wave so I know who you are. Um, so what I think I have control over, well, right now, for the most part, until I start talking shit or playing copywritten material, I'll have this platform, right? However, I do not control it at that point. Uh, so what do I really have control over in my life, other than the blob of water that I am? You know, and even then, what control do I have? I can fill it full of food. I can fill it full of drugs. I can fill it full of water. I can fill it full of whatever the fuck I want. Same with my mind. I can fill it full of bullshit. I can fill it full of grace and love. I can fill it full of cat cat videos. I can fill it full of the Marvel universe, the monkeys, music, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever the fuck you want to do. I can fill my mind with all that shit and have. Um, so one assumes that I've had control over what I consume, right? Well, okay, for the most part, maybe. But how I consume those things, or the places that those consumables come from, I have no control over. I got to go to a record store. I got to go on a platform. I got to go to a bookstore. I got to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I've always been fairly passive with the things that I have, you know, ingested literally and figuratively. Um, control on a daily basis. I get into a car. I drive to work. I go to work. I do work. Um, I mean, my work is what it is. I do. I don't want to talk too much about it because I try not to be very public about the work that my job, my regular job. But I have very little control over what I can and can't do at this job. Obviously, because I'm not a boss, I'm not a supervisor. I'm pretty much an employee. That's kind of it. So I have to take orders from my superiors to do the job I do. That's what I do. you know, Truthfully, I've always said it's like I don't necessarily want to be a manager. I don't necessarily want that responsibility or a director or whatever it is. I don't really. Not my thing. Never been. Maybe that's part of my problem. However, I so in with that all of that in mind, sometimes it's easy to forget, especially when one is in a bad state of mind, that because you're trying to control aspects of your life, what are the problems, the various things you're juggling on a day-to-day basis, and you're trying to go to work and be professional and be you know um, on the job and all that kind of stuff, and you know and you're trying to control your shit, your emotions, your whatever, your actions, again, your level of outward presentation of professionality to the people you work for and the people you work with, and it's a struggle sometimes, and sometimes you fail. Sometimes I fail. I have failed often. um, and that's okay. I figure. Hey Andy, I see Andy here on my Instagram. Um, so when one is in that state of mind and one does not have that control, one starts to get inwardly very, very fearful of one's mental survival. And for me, again, that's where I always tend to end up unfortunately. But sometimes it's just, the universe is just relentless that way sometimes, and it'll just throw shit at you. And if you're not lithe enough to move away and dodge and be a be a Marvel universe superhero who can dodge the bullets, well, it's you tend to get dinged, hit in the head and knocked over the wall, whatever it might be. And then it just becomes about survival. Or at least in the moment, that's what it feels like. And that's where I fail. There are times where I find myself in that moment, and it's not a moment of like life or death in any way, shape, or form. It's just this moment of like your mind goes lizard brain, fight or flight, and and then either you get you get over emotional, or you lash out, or you do whatever. And I mean, I used to be worse for sure, and I can certainly see it coming more often than not. But every once in a while, if my brain space has already been in a state of certain amount of like lack of sleep or whatever it might be, it's harder to control that shit. So, you know, you have to, you have to kind of ride that wave and hope that, someone doesn't get knocked over by the reaction from you of what you're feeling. And again, that's always been my problem. And so what do you do about it, right? Okay. So, well, what I do about it is I'm is I exist in a dread in my head and in my stomach for a number of days. Um, under the under the assumption that anybody who may have been caught in that wave is now basically, you know, certainly looking at you in a different way, or not uh, uh, you know, not appreciating you, or in that way, or feeling disappointed, or whatever it might be. So, those are the dreadful things that happen in your head. Um, but you have to get on with your day. You have to do what you got to do, and then now I don't. I take. I do. Let me put this the right way. I've been through a number of years of trying to do therapy with meds, and they've never worked for me because it always just comes down to me feeling like shit. But it also comes down to this, is the fact that there are times when I'll look at my reactions to certain situations. Um, and sometimes in hindsight, even after looking at it, that I'll look at that reaction and go, that was actually a correct assumption and or a reaction. So you have this weird thing happening. I'm not saying that's all the time, because there are a lot of times I'll look back and go, yeah, I completely reacted poorly in this situation. Um, but you see everything that's happening in this country with COVID, and the lack of empathy, and the lack of common sense, and just the lack of, oh, God knows what mental anything on in this country. Uh, I mean, it's a vicious circle, but it becomes a situation of like, well, my reaction to everything that I'm seeing on the news as I'm reacting to it, or as it's being presented to me, is not an over it's not an overreaction, you know? It's appropriate for me to be full of dread, or it's appropriate for me to be full of anger, or say, there's my cat. Yes. you know, uh, and I've talked about this ad nauseum with my therapist about, just like, well, where does where's that line, especially like if you're at work, or with people, or when you're trying to be professional about a thing, and you're finding yourself contradicting what you actually believe because you need to keep a job. Again, I don't think it's a unique situation, but it comes down to, like, my reactions to certain things are not necessarily incorrect, but I have to be professional, service oriented, and not say as such. And tell you what, you want to talk, the hardest thing that I have ever had to try to do in my life is to try to act that. I'm not good at it. Again, I think most people that know me, who have again tolerated me for 40 years, they know I'm not good with that kind of stuff. What you see is what you get. What I say is what I mean. How I say it is also meant to convey how I'm feeling about it. um, if you do something to piss me off, you're gonna know. Now, if I think back on it, and what you do to piss me off is something that maybe you didn't understand you were doing, or I did take it as something that it wasn't and realized I was overreacting, well, then that's different. But there are plenty of times where there is, you know, I have had people do and or say things, and it's just like, I have to just be the bigger person and not say anything. And to me, it's like, oh, that's the hardest thing for me to do. And in the long run, that's the thing that's going to be my downfall. Like, talk about an Achilles heel. That'll be the thing that, like, gets me fired or whatever. I'll say something to somebody at some point and just go, yeah, I don't care anymore. you know. And I'm not saying that's the thing to do. I'm just saying that's the truth of it. And I'm saying also that that's how we feel. That's how a lot of people in this country feel when they go to work. Sometimes is that they feel set up to fail. Because they don't have any purchase and they don't have any control. Um, I mean, God, look at the folks that, like, the whole minimum wage talk. I mean, these people that go to jobs that they actually can't afford to have the job. You know, And oddly enough, I mean, my current situation is such where I'm right at that weird tipping point of making just ever so much enough money, but not enough money to really live without a lot of fear that it could kind of come tumbling down, you know? I don't make tons of money, so I'm not like, I'm not comfortable. Now some would say, "Well, you have a house and, you've had your food and stuff and blah, blah, blah." Yeah. Yeah, I do. I'm lucky enough to have that much. That's for sure. But there's not an awful lot of help for me because if I have an issue, because I make just ever so much more money than is under the sort of limit of being able to be helped financially if I needed it, you know. Um, so in essence, I am in that weird situation of being caught in that sort of trap that a lot of people, Americans, are finding themselves in this country, where they fall within a strata or a status that is just ever so slightly above the margin of, you know, you'll get help up to this point, but you're just over this point, so you're not going to get that help, you know, because you're just over this point. You're considered okay, right? So so that feeds into one's mental state on a day-to-day basis, especially now with everything going on here at COVID. With COVID. Here at COVID Central. Um, so yeah, I don't want to make this a big downer, obviously, but I'm just talking about the things that were going on with me this week because it was a rough week. And but I do have my friend Andy here up on Instagram, I believe. He waved. I don't know if he's still there. um, I am so talking about control. One of the things I, have put it this way. One of the things I really would like this coming year, because it's probably going to take me at least a year to do this. I need to have more control over my life and over what I do and who I do it with. I don't know what that means in the context of a regular job or whatever it might be. But I need to create more balance no matter what. I need to create more, if I've got to keep the regular job as it is, okay, but I've got to figure out a way to keep to balance it out with working creatively, with doing, you know, well, like this thing that I'm doing every week. I'm trying to just kind of it's for me right now, like this talking on the microphone to not too many people right now, uh kind of helps. So it's a it's a little it's a selfish thing. But every once in a while someone will pop in and they'll say hello and we'll have fun chatting and it's cool. Um I need to get into a better brain space and a more balanced brain space to work on new music, to work on old music, to finish old music, and to continue working with others potentially. And you know, obviously, COVID right now is not helping. The speaking of my friend Andy Lampert here, it was just about a year ago, dude. We were talking about working on that EP. We were what? It was the beginning of March. We were making plans with Stu to to work on getting drums together down here and started recording and blah blah blah. And then we were told, "Oh, time you got to lock up. You got to, shelter in place and all this kind of stuff." And here we are a year later, and not much has changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. Albeit with more information, but also the fact that there's potential relief or hope with a new administration and vaccines. I for sure want to, once we get to that point, and I had mentioned this to you, Andy, the other day in that note that, especially between the two of us and our own various shared stew of health issues um, that we would want to make sure that we're all sort of vaccinated, um, before we could potentially start up again. But we're at least we can potentially start talking about it now. So that's something, and it would also be a matter of, like, obviously getting Stu and involved, in on that conversation, because I don't know where Stu is on that, like what phase he would be in now. I have to talk to my doctor. I technically, because of my particular morbidities, I should be. I'm actually close. I should be able to get it. I should be able to get a shot. Uh-oh. That's the cat singing and yelling. What's the matter, boy? Anyway, so, and goes to people that have, again, certain morbidities that, you don't have to be 65 years old to get the shot. So I'm hoping to get the shot sooner than later. Obviously, there's a number of different ones on the market. Um, there are newer ones coming out, apparently, that are handling the variants better. I think it was one from Johnson and Johnson, I want to say, is one. I've I've started to lose track a little bit of how many there are. I think there's, what, 5 of them or something like that now, 6. Uh, I don't know. But so, anyway, there's a little bit of hope on the horizon. However, you know, having to go to work every day is still um scary. It's just a scary proposition. Now, my work is actually doing a really good job in trying to mitigate that with testing. I get tested twice a week. They're catching the cases as they get them through the testing, isolating them, doing all the things. We were able to get through the last semester last year with a pretty good, assuming the numbers were being shown, that they're in a pretty good state. So as of right now, again, I'm under the assumption that the data that they're showing us is what it actually is, and they're not kind of fudging the numbers, to to keep with the financials, so to speak. Then, so far so good, right? However, it is more than it was last fall, and I think that they said that they assumed that was going to be the case, etc. So my job is such that I can't work remotely. My job is to be classroom support for hybrid learning. So now, for however long that's going to go, I guess it depends. It really depends on how long this goes, because I do events, and events have been canceled for a year. So basically, most of my job has been canceled for a year. So the fact that I still have a job is, well, I suppose I'm lucky in that regard, for sure. But however, things like, the stuff that I do on a personal level, my production work with, like, my friend Andy here, it's like, that got curtailed as well. I was able to do some production work with some other folks, but that's easier to do because it was stuff that was already existed. It's just, remastering of things, of tapes and things that I already had. So, you know, um, uh, so it's easier to do, and that's something I can do here at home. But, having people in the house and recording in real time, well, I also certainly don't have the money, to be able to work out a system, the 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 current systems that people are working on, of being able to record remotely in high definition and in, pretty much real time. I just don't have the facilities to do that just now, just yet. You know, Believe me, it's something I've looked at. But so anyway, so we're talking about control, right? So I guess what it comes down to is that if you want more control of your life, then I guess you have to really take that. You're like, put it this way: I dream a lot about being in a car that I have no control over. Either I'm in the back seat and no one's driving the car. There are the car driving in the snow, but I have no visibility. Like, I can't see out the window, or I'm in a car and I'm driving on a bridge, that's being subsumed by water and like so those are direct images of my feelings for that I lack control of my surroundings or my situations. Um, it's not all the time. I mean, there are times where, or there's times where I'm on these weird contraptions on the road. Uh, there have been times where I've dreamt that I'm getting to and from work and places, like, sitting on a skateboard, just, like, kinda, along the road. It's bizarre dreams like that about, you know, just not having that control. Um, so but, how does one get control of one's life on different levels? And I don't just mean financially. I don't mean just, professionally, if you wanna call it that. So where do you go? How do you start? Well, I don't know. One has to, identify. Uh, that's kinda where I'm at right now. I'm trying to identify where I might be able to gain some control of things in my life to create more balance or to create something different. Like, to the degree that I can control what I can on this platform, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatever it might be, those platforms that I don't have control over, but I have control over right now. Microphone is on, I can turn it on or off. I can turn music on, etc. I have control over that. So that's something. Maybe one of these days this would make me money. So there could become some sort of professional control. Who knows? I figure I have to start somewhere. And then but I have to get over myself too. Excuse me. Um the hardest part of all of this is also getting out of my own way. I'm real good at good at getting in my own way. Night, Andy. We will talk soon, hopefully. Um, one one has to find control where one can find it, at least to start with. Um, and right now, and I think that's part of it, is just identifying the moments that I can control, identifying the reality I can control, uh, and the circumstances that I can control. Which, again, the biggest part of it is trying to identify what the thing of those what trying to identify the things I can control and the things that I can't, and the levels of each of those things of what I can control. So, of the things that I currently cannot control, well, I've got to be okay with that. Okay, so that's resignation, right? So there's a certain amount of resignation that I have to allow for that, and I think right now that's the biggest thing I'm chafing against that I have to resign myself right now. I've got to resign myself to a certain amount of just not having control over certain aspects of my life. You know, there are aspects of my life that I'm powerless to change because of just the circumstances. The whole COVID thing. I mean, I have no way to change that. None of us do. But also, how my job is handling all of that and reacting to that, and my role in you know managing those things and as part of the job, and you know and resigning myself to the things that I can and cannot control. I mean, it's the whole religious thing, right? But it's true. So it's these moments that's where I find myself getting stuck a lot. So I'll start to identify the things that I think I can control, But then I get too picky into it. I start to pick at the weeds a little too much, and that's where I have to pull back, and that's my problem, but that's a problem I see people do. You know what I mean? I see people they get too close to the tree. Obviously, the whole forest for the trees metaphor comes to mind, but it's true. Um, so you have to pull back, you have to pull focus, you have to pull it this way and out. And then you gotta go from there. You gotta figure out how far back to pull. Because if you pull too far back, then you lose the focus of what it is you're trying to control, and then you just sort of I think that's where you potentially lose you lose focus, and you just kinda go and then you have nothing to grab on to at all. So really finding that razor's edge of like too close and or too far is kind of where I'm at right now. I'm trying to find that focus of like, okay, I don't know how far to pull in. I don't know how far to pull back because the gradations of either of those things is right now really making me out of focus. So I really feel out of focus right now for sure. I have these little moments of focus. I have these little moments of like clarity, of things I'll think about or just things, like every once in a while I'll think of that big picture that I was talking about the other week about, nothing matters. And the big picture is that, in 100 years, no one's going to know who the fuck I am. So who cares? But that some would call, well, that's fatalistic or that's, whatever. Um, I don't. It's not fatalistic to say to speak of what the reality is, and I think that's part of it too. It's like don't I see people getting kind of forced into these little moments of like they're speaking about a truthful thing in a realistic way, and then someone judges it or catalogs it into some sort of mini bite that it's nihilistic or that it's negative or whatever it might be, and it's just like, well, it'd be different if I thought like, if I was saying that like in 5 years, nobody will know who I am or nobody will care. That sounds nihilistic and that certainly sounds down and negative. But in 100 or 200 years, I haven't made that much of an impact as far as I know. I certainly haven't been paid for it. So I don't know. If 100, 200 years, people are still listening to the words that I'm saying. Okay. Well, great. Then I had then whatever it is I'm saying has a lot more wisdom in it than I ever got paid for, you know, because that's how we measure things these days. So if there's anybody 200 years from now listening to what I'm saying right now, you have to understand that if I'm speaking any kind of wisdom, great. I hope you get as much out of it as possible. However, you have to understand that I don't think that's going to happen at this point in time as I'm doing this because no one's listening to me. No one's online right now. I'm talking to myself. I'm recording it. And I'm not getting paid for it because that's how we measure success or whatever in this on this planet right now. If you get paid millions of dollars to say the things that I'm saying, then it means something, right? You have schmucks that are have a microphone just like this and they're talking bullshit and yet those motherfuckers are making millions of dollars. Okay. They're not making any more or less sense than I am. Probably less sense, to be honest. But they got the platform. Maybe they've got more ambition, whatever it might be. Maybe they got lucky. I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know what the difference is. Maybe there's just too many of us right now trying to do this shit. As I said, this is therapy for me, if nothing else, and if it's entertaining for other people that want to watch, well, great, and you do that. Again, I'm talking to nobody tonight, but I kind of don't care. Who knows? Maybe in 200 years, you'll all be listening to these words, which would be really fucking funny if that's the case. So, Um, so in talking about continuing to talk about one's mental health, um, it's like sobriety, it's a maintenance thing. Um, and people's mental health are I think in a lot of ways, people's mental capacities are obviously unique to each to themselves of what they can and can't handle or what they can and can't change within themselves with, whatever meds or therapy they're getting. And um, some people can be really successful at it. Some people can be moderately successful at it. I feel, and then some. There are some who fail at it completely, and unfortunately live probably very miserable lives on a lot of levels. Uh, and those are the ones that need the most help because they can't help themselves in any way, shape, or form. Now, I feel I fall into that middle category. I don't feel highly successful at how I've handled my mental problems. Now, that being said, you know, maybe I'm giving myself short shrift. I don't know. I really don't know. You hear and or talk of, or, you hear about people who have said that that they've gone a long way and they've come a long way and they're doing great and blah blah blah. But I mean, it's not a race, so it doesn't matter. But it does come down to I don't feel like I'm like I'm not like what you would call 90 to 95% effective regarding how I handle my mental health. You know, I give myself like a 75 to 80. I'm passing. I'm passing. It's a passing grade. But I struggle. I do. I struggle. Um, uh, I certainly wouldn't want to lie and say that I don't put roadblocks in my own way because I probably do. Um, Especially with things like diet, that could be very helpful. Those are the things I'm trying to change. Hard to change. You know. Um, but then when you get things thrown at you and you react in a very appropriate way, but then you're told that it's not appropriate. That's where it becomes a problem. That's where it becomes not just a problem with you. It becomes a problem with how society treats everybody. You know, the fact, like, so this past week we have members of the Senate who were uh, talking about their experience with that attack on January 6th. And, you know, the fact that they literally almost lost their lives. There were people literally gunning for them, and they somehow got through it. And, there were no actual governing people that were killed or harmed other than, there were cops. One cop was killed and the other cops followed. There were many injuries, but as of right now, I think it stands to 7 or 8 people that died as a result of those actions, right? Some of which were suicide. That was police committing suicide. Now, has to wonder if those police were committing suicide because they had something to do with it, right? That's the thing I'm wondering. Especially since they started looking for people who potentially had helped assisted those people getting into the Capitol. That's I gotta wonder. Anyway, but anyway, the people that I'm talking about AOC specifically. Um, came out very, very directly about her what she survived in her life. Excuse me, and how that attack affected her. And you know, there's a large chunk of people that thought what she did was disingenuous or that she was out not lying. My cat's yowling again. What's the matter, bub? Oh my goodness. Um, so you can't be truthful in this country, and then without somebody basically potentially telling you that you're full of shit. Um, with basically by people who are full of shit. So I mean, the irony of that is, and one could think that like, well, you just shouldn't listen to those people. You know, it's like, well, all right, well, that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Anybody will tell you that, like, whatever it is or whoever you are, you could have a million people telling you that how great you are. And then there'll be one person who'll just say, you're just shit. That one person is the one you'll listen to. That's just human nature. I think the human, I don't know, thought process somehow is attracted to that negative space in a very real sense, in a very natural sense, you know? And and then that one person will um basically somehow balance out with that other million people thinking, saying you're good, what you're doing is great, and that one person saying you're not. How does that balance somehow? How is it that a lot of people can't just like, shut that one person down and just like, you don't mean anything. I mean, it's a broad example, but it's a true one. You ask many artists, and that's how they've dealt. Like if they're on Twitter or whatever the fuck it might be, they have to get off of it. A lot of them don't. They stop. They've had to stop. Being on social media because it it they can't do their work without somebody attacking them for it. Um, So, and and on just on the day to day basis of living and having government entities, um, and people in government being threatened by, I don't know, just people who are so mentally ill, it's just not funny. Um, and literally not really much being done about it. And then having to work with them on a day to day basis, dude. If I was that person on a day, I would have been let go and fired like ages ago. Bringing guns to work or, saying the shit that I've been saying or accusing people, how is it that those people in the Senate and all that, how do they still have jobs? Why are they not being like just fired, or being made to resign or whatever? How, that's what I don't understand. The inequality of the situation is insane. I would be shit canned in 5 minutes. Shit canned, you know? And it's not like I want to do that at work. It's just I have no reason to do that at work. I'm just saying, if I were to come in half cocked and stupid like that and just acting that way, uh, good lord. I mean, I just, I don't. And the thing of it is, the more that they get away with it, the more intractable they're going to be. Is what it comes down to. Anyway, so it's what time is it now? It's about 8:30, a little after 8:30. Um, I guess the question would be is, do I do another hour and try to shift gears potentially? See, now the problem here is that if I wanted to play music over YouTube, Instagram wouldn't then hear it, at least the way that I'm set up right now. Uh, so I don't know if I want to do that tonight because I'd like to just keep the Instagram open as such as it is. I mean, again, there's nobody on, but I had one person say hey, and another person say, "Well, this isn't. I don't know what this is." Um, Joe Rogan shout out. I'm not Joe Rogan. Okay. I'm not sure what that means. Um, well, so one of the things I had been doing, which I can still do, is I was, so as much as I'm still in Facebook jail, I am, I can still trawl it pretty much. And so one of the things I was doing as part of the show past few weeks is I'll just kind of trawl through it a little bit and look at some things that pop up and just comment and stuff. Um, so all right, and so okay, so this is like one of the things that we're talking that I'm talking that I've been talking about. Um, hang on. So here we are with from Bernie here. It says, and this is basically about the stimulus. It basically says, unbelievable. There are some Dems who want to lower the income eligibility for direct payments from $75,000 to $50,000 for individuals, and 150,000 to 100,000 for couples. In other words, working class people who got checks from Trump would not get them from Biden. Brilliant. So that would affect me right there. I make just above 50,000. So my stimulus wouldn't exist. I may not get a fucking check. And I'm struggling just as much as anybody else. Um, and that's our fucking politics, man. We've had so many opportunities the past year for there to have been a moment where things just change en masse or change in such a way that it has to be ambitious change, and no one wants to do it. And just like they really, really want to just see the powder keg happen. I mean, it's already started in January. I mean, January 6th was. I mean, that was the kind that wasn't a revolution. That was just like a dog and pony show, ginned up by a bunch of idiots. Where the anger was, oh God, it was so misplaced on some levels, and it was placed in some levels that were correct, but for the wrong reasons. I mean, crazy how insane we are. This is not fucking rocket science, people. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, my dinner is coming back up on me. um, and also just looking at for those of us in the Northeast, we're also getting a storm tomorrow, apparently. So now, okay, so now it's like they're changing again and again and again. Um, there are so many different forecasts, and this is what happened last week. They said no, it was going to be this. It was definitely going to be this, and it was something complete. We didn't get barely hit. It was a complete dud. But now, E-Weather is saying 2 to 5 inches instead of 4 to 8, and before it was 5 to 10. I mean, God knows. So, man, I don't know. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. That's all I know at this point. Um, oh wow. Leon Spinks, heavyweight champ, who once beat Ali, dead at 67. Man, a lot of them are just dropping like flies, man. These are people that, again, I remember from my childhood. I remember watching that. Um, I remember watching that bout with that he had with Ali. Oh, battle with cancer. Okay. I mean, relatively young, man, 67. Yeah. Yep, it was that's right, 1978 when he granted a decision to victory over Ali, earning Spinks the world heavyweight title. Yeah, I remember watching that one, 1975, February 15th. So that would have been. It's almost, almost. How many years ago was that? That's what 40. 42 years. Wow. Yeah. So that's sad. So for those on Instagram, you may not be able to see it, but I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed and just kind of looking at stuff. Yeah, see, there's another thing. It says U.S. Bernie Sanders. I strongly oppose lowering income eligibility for direct payments from 75 to 50,000 for individuals and 150 to 100,000 for couples. In these difficult times, all working class people deserve the full 1,400. Last I heard, someone making $55,000 a year is not rich. No fucking kidding. So I guess there goes the stimulus. So I'm fucked. So there you go. So more aspects of control that I have just lost. So this is where we're at. Yep. Go figure. Yep, go figure. Sorry, radio silence. I was kind of hoping for the stimulus this week because I kind of need it. So I can get back on track. Oh well. There you go. It's another reason why I need a I need somebody to be paying me for doing this, you know. Oh boy. Oh boy. What? Oh my goodness. My cat. So it's hard to say that when he's doing that, whether he's feeling not good or whether that's him with energy. I just don't know anymore when he yowls like that. Anyway. Okay. So here's something. So some of you might remember this photo. I'm trying to make it 3D. Um, so the this tomorrow is Super Bowl Sunday. I have not been keeping up, of course. Not really a thing that's in my bailiwick these days. But I don't know. I might watch if there's nothing else to do. I mean, I have plenty of other things I can do, but so um, I always harken back or try to look at the if I'm going to look at a Super Bowl halftime, I would look at the one that Prince did because probably the best halftime show sort of ever, and there's like no way anybody's ever going to top it. Now, Lady Gaga's is probably a good close second. Those would be the two that I would sort of say were the best and probably could not be topped. I know McCartney did one, you know, the sort of general McCartney. I don't know if it was, you know, but you know, so with Prince's, this would have been February 4th, 2007. So we're talking what 13, 13 years ago. I guess that's right. All right. Um, am I counting that right? Yeah. No. I'm not counting that right. It is 2020. So 13. So we're talking almost. Wow, is that 15 years? Almost 15 years. Yeah. Um, It was basically, the most amazing thing, so, I mean, it's up on YouTube, obviously. I would say it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, and I remember again, remember seeing that one live, where the son of a bitch goes out on that stage, in the pouring rain, doesn't miss a beat, everything works, he doesn't slip, pouring rain, just like, and it poured harder during Purple Rain. And then you go back and you hear about, like, what they did during to make that all the rehearsals for it and the sort of the background of all of the setup for it, and the fact that Prince, he was told ahead of time, he's like, "Look, it's gonna rain like a motherfucker. How are we doing? How are we gonna do this?" And Prince in true style came says, I'm gonna try and do a Prince impression now. Prince probably just he basically went out and said, "Can you make it rain any harder?" And he did. He started playing Purple Rain, and it fucking just opened up on him beautifully. I mean, you can't I mean, come on, man. The pyrotechnics and the poetry of that are, I mean, just fucking beautiful, you know? So, yeah, so that's probably what I'll do tomorrow in lieu of watching a football game, is I may just go on YouTube and look at, some halftime shows, you know? Um, I'm just scrolling through at this point because, once again, there's nobody up here, so it doesn't matter. Radio silence. So probably what I'll have to do is I'll have to cut this, um, on YouTube, all this sort of dead air. Guess what it comes down to is that, talking further about one's mental health and what to do about it, I don't know, kind of tuckered me out, to be honest. Burping, excuse me. I see, this is part of the problem, is that, the social media thing is definitely, as such where, yeah, it's definitely, addictive and, potentially part of the problem. So if we're talking about mental health, um, this is, part of what I'm talking about when someone who is, a little or a lot for that matter, um, obsessive compulsive, or, it's actually like, it's like the best sort of argument against, uh, this kind of thing. Yeah, no, social media is definitely one of those things that it's probably the one of the worst things for a human being at this point, for someone who's obsessive compulsive, because It's just it literally is just that, and I have a feeling this with these that the way that these are, s you know, the way that you look at them is, they're designed to draw you in, and, excuse me. Well, yeah, talking also about, this son of a bitch who's probably single-handedly one of the reasons why there are so many poor and mentally ill people in this country is because of this son of a bitch. But, Reagan was evil, pure and simple. That's what someone says. It's like, yep. Well, so I don't know. It's like 10 minutes of 9. I'm probably gonna shut it down pretty soon since literally nobody else is up here. I'm talking to nobody, so and I feel like I've run out of things to talk about tonight. Um, so like I said, it's been a difficult week and you know, tiring week. And you know, I guess I mean, I don't look at anything. I don't look at what I'm doing here as work, which would be cool. I mean, if it was work, because you know, getting paid to do this would be a gas for sure. Uh, because God knows if I was able to parlay a little bit of this kind of work into something that paid, at a paying gig with sponsors and the whole nine yards. Um, that would be a cool thing. So I know back in December when I was off for a month from work, and kind of trying to formulate some of this stuff, trying to find the ambition in it, and trying to find the trying to identifying the motivation, but being able to sort of keep that motivation going. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do for me. But I'm going to try. I'm really trying to do that. At least I got to do these at least once a week, and if not, if for no one else, then just for myself to remind myself that I need to do this because otherwise I have nothing to complain about. Because I'm always looking for something to complain about. But no, what it comes down to is like, so, if I bitch and moan about my job or something. No, my goodness, he's yowling again. What you matter? What? What? Yeah, he just wants me to pay attention to him. So, as I was saying, uh, if if I don't at least try to move myself forward and try to gain the control that I was talking about earlier in the in the chat tonight, if I don't find myself, if I don't allow myself to if I don't push myself at least a little, then I have no reason to complain or bitch and moan or feel stuck at my current position because I'm not doing anything to change it. Last week I was talking about my own personal status quo, and like right now, damn, am I working hard? It's amazing when you're really that stuck in it, how difficult it is to pull yourself out of your own rut slash status quo. Man, and I'm in it. And because you get so used to a thing, and then and my particular trajectory in life for a long time has been not having that kind of stability, you know, uh, which has its own problems, obviously. But on the other hand, I complained about that too. So again, trying to find the balance. And if I don't even start trying to look for that balance, then if things go out of whack and are unbalanced, then then that's on me. Or for the most part. I mean, again, I know I don't have a lot of control over certain aspects of my life, then that's fine. But until I try to potentially create that control, I can't bitch and moan about the aspects of my life that I don't control. you know, that's pretty much where that sits. I'm not sure what else more to say about it at that point. And that's just a pep talk for myself. Um, so yeah, I think that on that score, I've officially been up here for about 90 minutes tonight. Again, I had one person pop in. I had another person pop in on the other hand, and that's about it. Otherwise, I've been talking to myself all night. So I think I'm going to shut her down. Again, for those who are potentially listening 200 years from now, um, this is where we're at it in the year 2021. Still talking about who we help and who we don't, depending on how much money they make. Yeah. So we'll see. See what happens. I don't know. Whether I make it through this or not, I don't know at this point. I may not get a stimulus check. Thanks for nothing, right? Anyway, so I'm gonna bid adieu, and I'll be back next Saturday at 7:30 for those of you who are listening, and for those of you who are not, well, tell your friends, I guess. All right, I'm gonna end this and go hang out with the cat. Good night.